Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Clear with another video. I have today the SOG Trident Elite. Now this is a knife that, I've been aware of the Trident. I had, watched some videos about it, but it was just a little small for me. So when last year when they introduced the larger version, I was mildly interested and I've kind of been watching it, so I was able to pick one up, and I have enjoyed using this and carrying it, and sometimes I know that I've made videos that make you think I don't like SOG. I like SOG as a company. I just have a couple of issues with this branch of their product lineup. The ones with the fake arc lock. That lock is total garbage and should be completely removed from existence, okay? That's my take on that lock. Outside of that, they have really good designs. They're very comfortable in hand. They're really lightweight. Not exceptionally tough or durable. It's not like we're talking about a cold steel here, but they're totally functional for EDC tasks, all right? So let's come back to this knife. What drew me to it was the blade shape. I really like this blade shape, the handle shape, the fact that it's a fairly large knife, good 8.5 inches overall. So those are the things that I really like, and also the weight on this for its size is very good. So when we talk about, may as well go ahead and talk about size and weight since we've already gotten into that. The blade on this is 3 5/8 inches. The handle is 4 3/4. Now some places list this as 8 3/4 inches overall, and that's because they add a 1/4 inch for this protruding pocket clip. To me, this is really not part of the knife. It doesn't add anything to the handle in terms of grip or ergonomics. And so to me, I'm only going to give you the measurement from the butt of the handle here, not counting this. And that measurement, okay, is just under 8.5 inches. And I mean just a hair under. Okay, now the weight on this is very good. I may have already mentioned this, but 4.4 ounces for a knife of this size is quite good. And it does carry very, very comfortably because of that light weight. All right, so size and weight is fairly good on this. Okay, it's definitely in the size range that I like to carry. The weight is extremely good for the amount of knife you're getting. Okay, so just for a couple of size comparisons and maybe competitive options, the SOG Flash 2, you can see that it's quite a bit smaller. It is lighter, obviously, but you're getting quite a lot more knife, a lot more blade, a lot more handle real estate on the Trident Elite. Another maybe more comparable in terms of size SOG is the Aegis. Now the Aegis is a great knife, okay? The design on this is very, very impressive. It is discontinued, and I hope they bring it back with some minor changes, okay? I'd like to actually see this as a slightly higher end SOG that has the real arc lock and stuff like that. Anyway, this is how the Aegis compares to the Trident Elite. All right, you can see they're much closer in size than the Trident and the Flash 2, but the Aegis is still a little bit smaller by maybe 1/4 inch, or maybe not quite even that much. A couple knives that compare closer to the same size, although they're a little more expensive, not totally outside of the realm of possibility. If you're looking at this, you may want to, and in fact I would recommend you take a look at the Cold Steel Swift. You're going to get a knife of similar size and similar, amount of handle real estate, but it is a little more expensive, but you're getting better steel and a much more durable knife out of the Swift. Another knife that would be similar category to the Swift would be the Benchmade Barrage. Very popular classic knife. Again, it's going to be around the same weight. This is one thing the Barrage does really well. It's fairly lightweight and more similar in functionality. The arc lock is really just an attempt to copy the Axis lock on Benchmade. When it comes to assisted opening, especially for budget, you've got to consider Kershaw. Now, I've got a couple of Kershaws here that are smaller, okay? But the reason I bring these in is, number one, they are assisted, and number two, if you're looking at budget-friendly assisted knives, you really need to be at least taking a look at a few Kershaws, okay, because they do a really, really good job. Pretty well my favorite assist mechanism is, or my favorite just general functionality in assisted knives, I think Kershaw does the best job of doing assisted openers. So back to the Trident Elite. Those are some comparisons, probably some that you may want to look at if you're interested in this knife, but also that gives you a good sense of size and where this lands. Okay, so you can probably see why I like it, because it definitely is on the larger end of the scale here. Now, let's talk about the blade. The blade shape on this is one that I really, really like. Okay, you've got the hollow grind and you've got the recurve, and both of those are features that I actually like. Okay, I know some guys, especially with the influence of Nut and Fancy, full flat grind knives are very, very popular. So a knife like this where there's no curve in the grind here, I know that's very popular, but even by his own admission, Nut and Fancy uses his folding knives all the time for kitchen work. I don't think that's what most people are doing with their pocket knives. In fact, my pocket knife never comes out in the kitchen unless I'm specifically testing for making one of these videos. And you guys know I will test cutting cheese and tomatoes and a few other things that I think give me a good feedback in terms of how well this knife slices. All right, outside of that, I have kitchen knives for kitchen work, okay? Now, for most EDC tasks, I find a hollow grind far superior. It gives you better geometry at the edge while allowing a good, thick, heavy hunk of steel for strength, okay? And I've said this over and over again, and that's one of the things that really drew me to this knife. I loved the hollow grind with the recurve. I think it's a very functional blade shape, especially good for most of those everyday carry tasks that we do. All right, now, one thing I will say is a drawback for me on this blade is the jimping going all the way along. You can see this is a clip point blade, but it almost hides the fact that it's a clip point by putting this swedge and the jimping up here. It sort of, at first glance, you almost want to say it's a drop point. The other problem I have with this swedge is the jimping on the back of the spine suggests a place to put your thumb, okay, like this, and that's going to give you a little more grip, and it does. But the swedge reduces the surface area, and it actually becomes quite sharp right here at the point here where the clip starts. And because of that, this is really, really uncomfortable. If you put your thumb up here and start cutting this way, you're actually pushing on a fairly thin piece of metal, and it's very uncomfortable. I know we're talking about ergonomics, but it is a feature of the blade, so I'll say it now. I really wish this swedge just wasn't there at all. Just leave it as a flat at the top, or at least don't start the swedge until past this sort of apex of the clip right there, okay? That would give me a spot to put my thumb that's comfortable and full thickness of the blade stock, therefore giving me a little more surface area to push on. Now, the rest of the blade, everything else is phenomenal, okay? And I've got to say this, yes, I wish a lot of S.O.G's blades were higher quality steel. You know, it feels like in the same price point, they're always one step down from everybody else. You know, if you're buying a Spyderco for $100, you're getting at least VG10, maybe S30V, you're buying a S.O.G with OS8. You know, and you move up to the $150 category, you're looking in at Spyderco at better steels. When you go and compare a S.O.G, you're always one step down in steel. I don't know why they do it. Well, I know why. It's a cost-saving measure, but I feel like they're taking advantage of the industry, okay? Their name is quite popular, so they know they're going to sell a lot of knives, and they don't have to put the good steel in because most of their buyers are not savvy, okay? Now, I need to make a company profile video, okay? Because there are things I really like about S.O.G and then things I really feel suck. So, we're talking about the blade, things I love, and the look of this blade, the satin finish is gorgeous. Now, I've talked about the blade steel, but even though I think the blade steel is a bit of a detraction, I wish this was VG10, and I think for the price point it should be VG10. What I will say about it is S.O.G does the best OS8 steel that I have seen. I don't know what they do to it to get it as high quality as they do. Okay, does it perform as well as some of the higher end steels? No. It performs like extremely well done OS8. And it is pretty substantially superior to, say, the OS8 you have on your Ontario Rat 1 or on your, Cold Steel American Lawman or other cold steels. SOG really does a good job with their aussate steel. So I'll give credit where credit is due, while at the same time saying, hey, imagine what you could have done if you used VG10 instead. All right. So that's my little gripe, or even 154 CM or D2, or, you know, there are other steels that I think would be legitimate options that wouldn't put the price through the roof. Okay. So that's my take on the blade. Very good blade shape, just a couple minor issues, primarily being what were they thinking on making the place where you're supposed to put your thumb thin and almost sharp. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and I just don't think it makes sense, period, not just to me but to anyone. Otherwise though, I really like this blade shape, and I have found this exceptionally good. You know, I cut up a bunch of cardboard boxes, and number one, it slides through cardboard way better than a lot of other knives. Number two, it held its edge for quite a long time, way better again than you would normally expect from aussate. Okay, so those are the good points about this blade. And of course, you have to add to the fact that it just looks really nice. It's a beautiful satin finish. The overall just look of this blade is very, very attractive. Now, let's move on. And I guess I should zoom in. I should have probably zoomed in a second ago so you could see the blade in that detail that I'm talking about. Why don't we do that now? Come on. And I'll leave you zoomed in while I talk about lockup and deployment. All right, focus. There we go. So there's that clip point, hollow grind with a recurve. Very, very nice looking blade shape as far as I'm concerned. Now, lockup and deployment. We do have the SOG calls it the arc lock, but don't be deceived. This is not the same arc lock that you're getting on like the SOG Visionary 2 or the, all of a sudden the name evades me, but I have a video with another SOG that I'll think of in a couple of minutes. I don't know why the name is evading me right now, but the SOG, like the Tomcat and the Fat Cat and a number of higher end SOGs, have a real arc lock that actually extends through the handle, so they're fully ambidextrous. This fake arc lock does not extend through the handle, and it's not as solid. It's not as secure. Okay, there's actually just a plastic arm in here that moves back and forth on a little spring. And so it's a little bit Mickey Mouse in terms of its construction. Now, what I have to say about this is the same thing I've said about this lock every time. There is up and down blade play. And again, in this day and age, with the manufacturing abilities that are available and with the competition that's out there, there should never be any blade play in a folding knife ever, as far as I'm concerned. There's just no excuse for it, okay? So, if you can't design this lock to have no blade play, then scrap the lock and put the right arc lock in here. All right. Now, otherwise, the assist is very fast. The detent is quite strong, so you're never, ever, ever going to shake this out of the handle. Okay. The thumb stud is very comfortable. All right. And so the deployment is really well done. Now, it's not as smooth, and I've noticed this about pretty much every SOG. They close fine until, okay, right here, it gets really tough, and you've really got to squeeze that last little ways to get that in. And it's not true that, there you go, see? You can see that it gets really tough right before the detent kicks in. So lockup and deployment, very fast, very reliable, moderately smooth, but what I wish is that this lock was the real arc lock rather than this terrible attempt at replacing it with a cheaper version. And that's all that you can say about this. It is a cheaper version of the real arc lock, and they only use it to save money, and it should never be. Okay, this lock should never ever be used in a folding knife ever. It's garbage. So that's my single biggest complaint with this knife. Everything else, I talked about the swedge here, and there were a couple little things. I would say perfect. I'll live with it because none of them are deal breakers. This arc lock is horrible. No one should be using this in a folding knife, and it really disappoints me that SOG continues to use this stupid fail of engineering. Now, let me carry on with the rest of the knife now that you've heard my rant about the worthless lock. Now, let me say, if you are okay with a little bit of up and down blade play, which I can use the knife and not want to throw it away every time. But when I stop and grab it and say, yeah, it's still got blade play, that does bother me every time because it shouldn't be there. There's no excuse for it. I have knives that are way cheaper, way lower quality, that have no blade play at all, that are made, you know, just as cheap and fast and easy as they possibly can be, and yet they're able to have no blade play. So there's really no excuse for it. And let me, before I move on, I know I said I was going to move on, but let me say, here's another knife with the same lock. Guess what it has? Blade play. Here's another knife with the same lock. Guess what it has? You guessed it, blade play. It's like SOG cannot execute this without blade play. So to me, you say, hey, this thing sucks, let's get rid of it and use a good lock, which the arc lock, the actual arc lock, is. The SOG Vulcan is the knife I was thinking of a minute ago. The SOG Vulcan, when I had that thing, it was rock solid. It was fantastic. Great, great knife with a great, great lock. And that's the lock that should be in all of these. Okay, now, moving on from the lock. Sorry about that little rant, guys, but I had to digress there for a minute and just let you know how strongly I feel about the whole lock discussion. Now, let's carry on and go on to the handle, because the handle on this is very, very good. It's comfortable, it's grippy, it feels great in hand, and in fact, I think they've achieved almost the perfect balance between a handle that feels great in hand, but is also extremely grippy. A lot of times a knife that's super grippy, you know, think of those, the brick pattern on the cold steels, you know, think of some of the heavy jimping that are on some zero tolerances. Yeah, the grip is great, and I love those knives, but they do tear up your hands a little bit and they can get a little uncomfortable. This is not going to get uncomfortable at all, as long as you keep your thumb back here on the handle and you don't get it too much up on the blade. This is okay as long as you're not doing any heavy cutting. But this handle is very comfortable. The rubber inserts feel really good in hand, and they do add a lot of grip. So that's a real win, and I really, really find the ergonomics on this knife to be an A+, okay? Now, carrying on to the lanyard hole is nice and big. The pocket clip is less than ideal, okay? I understand what they were trying to do with this clip, but the thickness on the handle here makes, look how there's no space there. Compare it to the lock on the Flash 2. Let me close these both so I don't cut myself while I'm doing this. Okay, there's the Trident, there's the Flash 2. Maybe I'll zoom in here just a little. Okay, there you go, you should be able to see that there now. So see how there's no space at all here? And so this actually becomes pretty difficult to get in and out of your pocket, especially because there is this nice piece of rubber right under this pocket clip. So it grips like crazy to your pocket. And sometimes you actually need two hands. You're like, come on, come out. And you've got to get two hands on your pocket and drag it out, okay? So the pocket clip needs to be like this, all right? The fact that they already have a pocket clip just like that. By the way, they're so similar that I do plan to pull this out and try to put this one on and see if that works. I may make a short video about that if I do it and if it works out well, because that may be a good option for a lot of people who like this knife but wish it was better in pocket. I think that would be a big improvement. Okay, so let me go back to normal view here. So the pocket clip is not ideal, but it is functional. It's designed to be a deep carry clip, but what happens is because it's so tight, you end up getting your pant leg to about here, and that's where it gets stuck. Okay, so it actually kind of defeats the purpose of the deep carry clip by making it so you actually can't get the pant leg fully into the clip the way you kind of want it to go. So there you go, that's the handle. Oh yeah, one last thing. This cutout for the cord cutter is not very good. Number one, the pocket clip actually interferes with the opening so that it makes it not very functional. You know, if you haven't put a seatbelt in here, the side of the seatbelt that you're cutting runs into the pocket clip and makes it so you can't get it through. And I can tell you, I had this experience just a few weeks ago at fire training. We were practicing auto extrication, and we use the jaws of life, and we get to the seatbelt and say, hey, let's practice cutting this seatbelt. So we went to cut the seatbelt a few times. A few guys had knives with cord cutters like this, and guess what? They don't work very well. Finally, I took out my knife and cut the seatbelt and moved on, and everything was fine. And all the guys kind of looked and went, yeah, we should just use a regular knife for that because these cord cutters are not working well. Okay, now there are some that are specifically designed, like the Rescue Me, that works pretty well. But when it's cut into a knife handle here, they don't tend to work that well. Okay, there's too many things that tend to interfere. All right, bit of a gimmick. The other thing here is the carbide glass breaker. Now I will say, even a small glass breaker like this will work. It'll work just fine. All you have to do is make sure that you hit the window in the corner. And if you hit the window in the corner, it does not take much to break a car window. You will have no problem. So if you're, if you're in the car, maybe you can get a good swing and hit the front corner of your window like that. You could probably even come back here and bash the window back here in the corner. As long as you hit it in the bottom corner, you should have no problems. The window should break right out for you, okay? So pretty much any, the carbide tip glass breaker, it's fine. It's gonna work, okay? Because a window, if you know how to do it, is actually fairly easy to break. Now, overall, let me come back to sort of, now we've talked about all of the features. Yeah, the cord cutter and the carbide tip are maybe a little bit gimmicky. It's not the end of the world. The carbide tip especially, I'm not going to complain too much about it. It's fine, it doesn't get in the way, and it does give you that option. The cord cutter is, you've got a knife anyway. Why bother with a cord cutter? You can just open the knife and cut whatever you've got to cut. Okay, so overall, I think this is a good knife. The comfort in hand is good. The quality of the blade steel is good. The blade shape and the overall design of the knife is very functional. The big issues here are the lock, which I say every time I review a folding SOG. The pocket clip is not ideal, and this cutout on the top, although it looks all right, is kind of counterintuitive because of the fact that you want a nice thick fat surface for your thumb to rest on, especially if you're going to really bear down on something, and instead they've actually cut it to be thinner, which doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. So there you go, guys. That's my impression of the SOG Trident Elite. And this is, I've said this over and over again about all of these SOG folders. They're so close to being awesome. If this just had a good lock that was really solid, I'd just be singing the praises of this knife. It'd be amazing size and weight. The pocket clip wouldn't be ideal, but I could totally live with it. The thing that really becomes the dominant feature is the poor lock design, okay? So, hope you enjoyed the video. I do like the knife overall, and I do carry it. I know I've been fairly negative in the video, but I want to just reiterate that the knife is functional. It just has up and down blade play, which as a knife guy really, really bothers me, okay? Maybe it doesn't bother you at all, and if that's the case, go nuts. Although, even if it doesn't bother you, I would say there are other knives, and I've shown you some in this video, that are cheaper or even at the same price point that don't have any blade play. So it's like, if I'm gonna pick between blade play or no blade play with the same functionality, I'm gonna go with no blade play pretty much every time. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll talk to you soon.